Bring in the reporter who first broke this story, senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Josh Gerstein, and Dahlia Lithwick, who writes about the courts and the law for Slate and hosts the podcast Amicus. Good to have you both with us. Josh, Judge Roberts confirmed your reporting yesterday, the authenticity of the document, and Elise was just talking about the timing of this. Given the timing, is Roe v. Wade, is it dead?
I don't think it's a absolute done deal, because I still think we haven't really played out the potential impacts of the unprecedented event of the opinion being leaked and published. I mean, since that hasn't happened before, we don't know, does it mean it stiffens the spine of certain justices who might want to bring down Roe versus Wade or might be open to that idea? And therefore, they don't want to appear to respond to any type of public pressure. That was a very kind of defensive statement by Chief Justice Roberts yesterday, aside from the acknowledgement that the draft opinion we published is in fact authentic. So, or does public reaction and a fear of actually taking this, very significant step cause one justice, which might be all we're really talking about here, to pull back from the brink a little bit. That said, it's worth remembering, because abortion rights have retreated a fair amount in these states we're talking about over the last 10 to 20 years, to the point where I think there's 6 states that have 1 abortion clinic in the entire state. And you have states like Texas where, you have a massive, massive state and very, very few places you can get an abortion, let alone if for some reason you find you need it in the second trimester. Good luck to you at that point.
But given that Judge Roberts says this will not impede the work that's being done, the leak, because you just referred to the fact that there could be reaction to the leak within the court and, jockeying. But does this draft opinion have a chance of being drastically changed between now and June? Probably not. Or is there a possibility?
I think there's very little chance that it would be drastically changed. Perhaps some sharp edges or some of the harshest language in there could be tweaked. The question to me is not so much whether we don't see an opinion like this at the end of June from some members of the court, but is there any chance that what appears and is based on our reporting, at least in the initial stage of this process, to be a majority of the court willing to take this step to bring down Roe versus Wade, does someone in that group waver? And when Joe referred earlier to the Wall Street Journal editorial, that seemed to be an effort to tell the conservatives in that bloc, don't waver. Justice Kavanaugh, perhaps Justice Barrett, take the full step. Don't be afraid to do it, and don't break off, as our reporting and the reporting of some others suggests that Chief Justice Roberts may be inclined to do.
Dahlia, I want to talk through your piece a little bit. It's titled, "The Supreme Court's Legitimacy is Already Lost." In it, Dahlia writes this, quote, "If the Supreme Court indeed strikes down Roe versus Wade, years of conventional wisdom about the court and its concerns for its own legitimacy will be proved wrong. The court's staggering lack of regard for its own legitimacy is exceeded only by its vicious disregard for the real consequences for real pregnant people who are 14 times more likely to die in childbirth than from terminating a pregnancy. The Mississippi law has no exception for rape or incest. We will immediately see a raft of bans that give rights to fathers, including sexual assailants, and punish with ever more cruelty and violence women who miscarry or do harm to their fetuses. The days of pretending that women's health and safety were of paramount concern are over. Be afraid for what's coming next," Dahlia writes, "in terms of personal autonomy and liberty, for LGBTQ protections and the right to contraception, yes. But be equally afraid for the abstraction of an independent and principled judiciary, no matter what happens next. That is already lost." Dahlia, I'll let you expand on that a little bit. I guess we're not completely surprised by this draft opinion that we saw based on the oral arguments, the reaction to them in court last December. But what are the impacts as you see them to this court?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's really tricky, and I guess you all teed it up at the top of this hour, is that we have to hold 2 ideas in our heads at once. One is that we should, of course, all due respect to Mitch McConnell, be focusing on how this is going to affect women, pregnant people. I think we are looking at, as I flicked at in the piece, a huge uptick is going to come of charges against women who miscarry, who harm their fetuses. All that is coming, and it is existential, and we should be talking about it. At the same time, we need to be talking about the legitimacy of the court itself. And that doesn't mean focusing on the sort of Agatha Christie whodunit. I don't think that's where we should be focusing, but we should be focusing on the fact that the court has been dealt a crushing blow. And that's what you heard in John Roberts' statement yesterday. This is an absolute gut punch, not just to the justices, their ability to sit in conference and talk freely with each other. There has been a presumption of absolute secrecy at the court since the founding, and certainly in the last 5 decades, there has been an absolute lockdown on this kind of information getting out, with a handful of exceptions. So not just the legitimacy of the court's intramural conversations and trust, but a massive national crisis of legitimacy in an institution that I don't think we can afford to lose confidence in. And so one of the things I was trying to sort of play out in that piece is that it's not good for the political right or the left to have a court that started this term with a 38 to 40% approval rating, the lowest since Gallup has been polling. It's going to go further south, I fear, and that's not good for any of us.
Hey, Dahlia.